This NFL Week 3 Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use promo code SGP. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on football. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SGP. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Snag the tickets without the stress. Use promo code CFBX on your first purchase to save $20. Download the Game Time app and use promo code CFBX. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play the underdog pick'em in college or NFL and win up to 20 times your money in one game. Plus, every Sunday, they're giving away $100,000. Use promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus of up to $500. Finally, we're brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Friday evening, currently 7:42 on the East Coast, here to get into our NFL Week 3 player props. And I got my guys here with me. First, you guys know Master Motorsports King of the industry. It's my main man, Rod Villagomez. Rod, how's it going this Friday evening, brother?
Getting ready for another exciting week of racing. And, oh, yeah, there's football going on, too. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely enjoying the fact that, listen, I'm not going to here to tell you that the San Francisco 49ers are the best team in the NFL, but the 49ers are the best team in the NFL, guys. You guys need to take notice. They put stomping on the Giants last night. And, I mean, I know it's the Giants. I still feel good about it, though. They looked really – I mean, Brock Purdy was not – when you can play your worst game of the season and still – kick the shit out of a team, you love it.
Apparently, me and Chris here are with the Niners. We're sporting our red today in honor of the San Francisco 49ers whooping some New York Football Giants ass on Thursday Night Football. Like I mentioned, I also got my guy here, Chris, with me. Chris, how's it going this Friday evening, brother?
What's going on? What's up, Rod? Happy to be here. And like you said, I didn't even kind of coordinate this at all, but
I didn't I was just throwing it out there.
I kind of owe it to San Fran. I was on first half last night, minus 6.5. I got that number, a little bit of juice, and I was also on the 10. So, I wear red every day if that mean they're gonna cover for me. But I love the spot for San Fran last night. And whenever San Fran's playing against an NFC East team, I'm always gonna be rooting for San Fran anyway. My Commanders and a little bit of hope that we have. So excited to get into it this week. I feel like initially I was like, not too much to like. I don't see a lot of matchups that I like, but I actually went over and got a few more props than I probably should have. So excited to be able to talk about it with you guys. Let's get into it.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, our teams combined here are 5-2. I'm not gonna name the team that's responsible for the 2 losses of our fandom here, but here we are. We are combined 5-2, guys. So. Yeah, I mean, like kind of going back to Thursday Night Football. I mean, not a lot to say here. I think everybody expected this game to go the way it did last night. I know early on it was 3-3 at the end of the first quarter, but I mean, eventually you knew that the San Francisco 49ers were going to turn it up and just absolutely blow the waters out of the New York Football Giants. They cover the 10.5 spread, 10 depending on where you got it. A final score of 30-12. The magic number of 30, again, with Brock Purdy as a starting quarterback for this San Francisco 49ers team. Christian McCaffrey gets over his rushing yard prop. Deebo Samuel has a huge game. George Kittle contributed as well. Brock Purdy was able to pick apart this Giants secondary. And again, I mean, like Rod mentioned, right now, if you did power rankings for the NFL, by far, San Francisco 49ers are the number 1 team. So, I mean, nothing was different for me last night. Rod, anything else to add about the Niners and the Giants last night?
The only thing I'm salty about is the fact that Christian McCaffrey did not get 125 yards. Munaf, I am not thrilled about that. Imagine having one of the best running backs in the entire league, and you have a passing game script. Let's go, Shanahan. What the hell are you thinking? Just give the ball to Christian McCaffrey he was ripping off 9-yard runs. Like, dude, nobody was stopping him. And we were like, oh, yeah, let's give Brock Purdy the most passing attempts that he's had this season, let alone, in a few weeks in his career. I'm salty.
I mean, well, that just kind of tells you how bad the Giants defense is then, right? I mean, if Brock Purdy, I mean, no disrespect to him. I mean, he's proven the odds. I mean, the way that he's been able to command this offense, like we've talked about this week in and week out, for him to go out there and throw 310 yards against this Giants defense, where usually he's in the neighborhood of that 200 to 220 mark every single week because he doesn't really need to throw the football. I mean, that just kind of tells you how bad this Giants defense is. Chris, thoughts on any takeaways from last night that may have surprised you or didn't surprise you, or just kind of expect the game to go the way it did?
Kind of expected the way it go. I expected it to go the way it did, but kind of what Rod was talking about. I was on Mr. Daniel Jones passing attempts to go over. Yeah. He missed it by one because he threw the pick too early. So if he completes it or doesn't complete one more pass, then then I cash that prop. And another thing Rod mentioned, you get picked apart on the offensive end through the air as well, because I took Brock Purdy to go under his 230 passing yards, and he threw for 300 yesterday. So the Giants couldn't stop a nosebleed. It is a tad bit concerned. I know we're making fun of him. It is a tad bit concerning, from a Giants perspective. I know they were shorthanded without Saquon yesterday, but you didn't even have to travel. You went from San Francisco to LA, so you didn't even have to travel at all, and still come out there and get pretty much mollywopped. Yeah. It's pretty bad for them. Couldn't stop the pass, couldn't stop the run. Like Rod said, it could still be handing the ball off to Chris McCaffrey, and he'd still be breaking off 7.5-yard runs right now. So Giants got a lot of stuff to clean up, unless they're just going to look forward to next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were in a tough spot as well. Obviously, short week for both teams, but I think the way the Giants kind of came back in that second half against Arizona Cardinals, they were probably going to come out a little flat. I mean, I think it was second quarter, second half, it was going to eventually the Niners were going to pull away. But again, Niners improved to 3-0, and they are on to week 4 now with extended rest. And I think that's very important for guys like Christian McCaffrey for this 49ers offense, who has been really pretty much carrying a load for them in the first 3 weeks. So they get a full 10 days off here before the next game in week 4. Gentlemen, let's get over to our player props for NFL week 3. Rod, why don't you lead us off, my friend?
The theme of mine is going to be you get rewarded for trying. This is the theme of my entire prop picks today. I'm going to go with attempts on this one because I feel like there's prizes to be had. You get the trophy for doing your best. And so I'll start with Mac Jones and his passing attempt numbers. This is set at 31.5 pass attempts. I'm going to take the over on this. Surprise, surprise, at -125. But I'm picking spots to where I think that the overs are locks, because if you look at what Mac Jones has done already, he has passing attempts. In fact, the New England Patriots lead the league right now in passing attempts per game with 48 pass attempts per game. I mean, these guys are throwing the ball left and right. That Bill Belichick already does not like himself running backs, because we know that as a fantasy manager, it's hard to tell who's got what. So in 2 games so far, Mac Jones threw for 54 attempts against the Eagles, 42 attempts against the Dolphins. You got to be kidding me with that. That's a lot of attempts. And then you look at the Jets, they've allowed 39.5 pass attempts per game so far in the 2 this season. Look back at what he's done against the Jets in his career. He has 2 games above this mark and then 1 at 30. Exactly. So, and then the other one's at 27. So he's been in and around this number or over in each of his 4 games. We're only asking 31.5. I mean, that's 11 less than he threw last week. So I think that's going to be still the game script against the Jets. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. They're not deep, but definitely throwing the ball a lot against him. Even 32 attempts, 33 attempts is I think a good expectation for Mac Jones this week. So give me Mac Jones over 31.5 pass attempts at -125.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's faced this Jets team 4 times in his career. He's gone over this projection of 31.5 pass attempts at 2 out of the 4 games. But I think more so what we talk about with this Jets front line is that they're going to be able to slow down the running game for this Patriots team, which has pretty much been non-existent. I learned that the hard way last week with Ramondre Stevenson. I know that he turned it on late last week, but I mean, early on in that game, this Patriots rushing attack has been non-existent. So, and again, that has to be on the shoulders right now of Mac Jones to carry them to their first victory in week 3, hopefully against the Jets here, if you are a Patriots fan. Chris, thoughts on Mac Jones here?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. It correlates well with my problem. Can I go straight into mine as
Yeah,
well?
go for it, man. Go right into it.
Same game, and it's perfect correlation. And you mentioned them already. Ramondre Stevenson. I'm on his under rushing yards. It lines up perfectly, right? So I got this number at 60 and a half. So we need him to stay under the 61 rushing yards in this game. A little juice, minus 120 over on PointsBet. But you look at this Patriots offensive line, they rank 31st in run blocking, which is why they've been passing the ball so much because it hasn't been working. Jets defensive line ranks number 2 in stopping the run blocking right now. Their run blocking grade. And going back to the Jets, they've actually been a top 6 unit in defense when it comes to run stopping, tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage so far this season. You look at Ramondre Stevenson, he's averaging just 0.0, so no yards after he's been contacted either before or at the line of scrimmage. So he's not getting any of those. That actually ranks 41 out of 47 running backs that actually qualifies. Last week, 25 yards rushing, just 25 yard rushes, 12 carries versus the Eagles in week 1. And 15 carry, and he did have 15 carries for 50 yards last week. So I think he stays under this number. I went back and looked at his game logs, and just dating back to last season, he's actually stayed under the 61 rushing yards in 9 of his last 10 games. So I think the number's set a tad bit too low, and I don't think that Ramondre Stevenson goes over. I don't think that he gets a lot of rushing yards in this game. Also, you just think about it from a game script perspective. The Jets have been absolutely atrocious. They finally come back home. You really have to fight hard. I know that the Patriots typically own the Jets, and that goes back to, of course, before Tom Brady. But it also, same thing with Mac Jones. But Garrett Wilson got to be thinking, man, I got to be able to get one, right? Like they can't beat anybody. We can't beat anybody. So we got to be able to pull off this one. So I think you get a very, very, good effort from the Jets and what could be one of their winnable games that they have on their schedule. So give me Ramondre Stevens to go under his 60 and a half rushing yards. I think we see the Jets defense bring it, especially on the run stopping front.
I mean, I think the plan for the Jets defense and Robert Saleh is probably going to be, hey, make Mac Jones beat me, because he hasn't performed very well the first 2 weeks for the New England Patriots. Overall, their offense, I mean, I know they were in that game against the Eagles, but it just wasn't there for them or the first 2 weeks here. So yeah, I mean, you guys are pretty much on the game script here of what the Patriots are going to have to do to beat this Jets team. All right, before I get over to my first player prop for NFL Week 3, let me tell everyone about DraftKings Sportsbook. We're back with another week of football, and DraftKings is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw 5 on any of this week's epic matchups, so walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Like I mentioned, we're fans of the 49ers, the Commanders, and the Texans here. Combined, our teams are 5-2. Hey, I think my Texans are going to add to that win total there and make it 6-2 this week against Jacksonville. So, hey, bet some $5 on that plus 320 over on DraftKings for the Texans money line. Football is more fun when you're in on the action, so download the app now. Sign up with code SGP. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code SGP. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. And we're also brought to you by Game Time. Hey, if you want to get out to the ballpark before the baseball season's over, WNBA playoffs are going on right now, and obviously we're in full swing of NFL. And you want to get out to the stadium and watch some of these games, or if you want to go out to the theater and a comedy show in the area, let Game Time help you out. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't have to be stressful, and Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sporting events, music, comedy, and theater, like I mentioned. With killer deals on last-minute tickets, their best prices are guaranteed, and you can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you're going to have. Their app has some great features, like I mentioned, flash deals and last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. And the best part of their app that I love, that you're going to get image of your seat before you purchase the ticket, so you're not going to have any surprises when you get actually to the venue. Like I mentioned, their lowest prices are guaranteed, and they're so confident in their prices that they have the best prices out there. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat, like I mentioned before you buy, so you know exactly what you expect when you arrive. And buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're all set to go. And the best part is that you're going to get the tickets sent right directly into your phone on the app. You don't have to hassle through the mailbox or your email box. No, they're right there on your phone. So all you got to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem code CFBX for $20 off. Download Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices are guaranteed. All right, gentlemen, my first player prop, I'll go with the quarterback here as well. I am going to go with Justin Fields, over 58.5 rushing yards in this game. And again, we know all the trouble that the Bears are having on and off the field within their organization, right? And I know that there's been interviews that, Justin Fields is blaming or pointing fingers or whatever the case might be. In the latest interview, whatever the case might have been, is that, hey, he's taking accountability, that if there's any blame, that, it falls on the shoulders of Justin Fields. But I think he's also mentioned that he's probably thinking too much and it's been a little robotic. And I think that just kind of tells me this week he's probably going to get back to being the Justin Fields that we were used to seeing last week. That's that scrambling quarterback, making those plays with his legs and helping out the offense that way, especially now you're going up with a Chiefs front seven. Now you're getting Chris Jones back last week, who had obviously had an impact in that game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he's going to be trying to get to the quarterback and get Justin Fields sacked. But I think this is going to be a game where we do see Justin Fields take off and run here a little bit. I got over this number in week 1 against the Green Bay Packers, barely at 59. Last week, he wasn't very effective in their loss against the Buccaneers. But I think going back against the Chiefs, if you're going to keep up with the scoring and how bad the defense is of the Chicago Bears, where we know the Chiefs are going to be able to put up points, Justin Fields is going to have to press the issue a little bit. I think he's going to have to utilize his legs. So I'm going to go back to the well. Give me Justin Fields over 58.5 rushing yards in this game here, Rod.
He's got to do something, right? I mean, and the thing he does best is run that ball and use his legs. So I'm just saying, like, there's no Bears fans are already frustrated as it is. So, they can't do the same thing and continue to think something's going to happen. That's the definition of insanity. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you on this. If it's get back to basics time for Fields, even though he's not like a grizzled vet, it's get back to basics time and do what he does best. I think that's a good prop.
Oh, you got Chris Dino over there, Chris. I know, right? Talk to me.
hey, for the sake of time, I'm gonna just say he's got to do something. we gonna coin that phrase like almost like he is who we thought he were. He is who he thought he was, or they are who we thought they were. He got to do something. He's got to do something. I mean, you laid it out already. Like, what more opportunity you gonna get? We know how much the Chiefs like to run up and down the field and get on and off the field with their offense and score a bunch of points. So the land of opportunity is gonna be there. He's got to do something.
Rod, take us over to player prop number 2, my friend. What do you got?
All right. Once again, reward you for trying. Bijan Robinson over 14.5 rushing attempts. I got this at -105. Chris is pumping his fists over there. Look, and they got to do something, right? They've got to do something. And they drafted this guy. They brought this guy on board to be that guy. I know that Algier is still the sexy little toy, but Robinson had 19 carries last week. And now this is something that they can build on for him to be able to continue that. 19 for 124. That just proved exactly what you can do if you put the ball in this guy's hands multiple times, right? I mean, that's the name of this game. Ritter, not going to kill you with his arm, right? 273 yards passing against Green Bay, and then 115 against the Panthers. Like, he's not going to kill you with his arm. You need to do something, and you need to be able to give that ball to your star. Now, the only thing that I'm a little concerned of is that, Detroit's not necessarily a team that you're going to continue to run on with any sort of authority. They're averaging about 24 attempts per game from their opponents. So the teams aren't trying to run too much on him. But again, Desmond Ritter's not going to kill you with his arm. So you got to put it in the hands of Bijan Robinson. And if you do it early enough, then you can get to that number about the third quarter if you do it and it works well enough for you. So they got to feed their best player, and that's right now Bijan Robinson. So I say his attempts, it's so low, 14.5. I think they'll give him 15 carries in this game if they're smart.
I mean, you're not getting any argument from me about Bijan Robinson. He's just came out and looked really good for this Falcons offense. And we talked about it, right? This Falcons offense, it starts with a run, right? Whether it's Bijan Robinson, whether it's Tyler Algier, whether it's going to be Desmond Ridder using his legs as well. It's going to be the rushing attack. So, yeah, I'm not going to argue about Bijan Robinson. He's been a stud at least through the first 2 weeks here. Chris, I saw you pumping your fist, man. Are you in agreement with you? Got him as one of your plays?
Yeah, Rodgers throwing all the alley-oops, so I haven't even gotten to my quarterback prop yet, but I absolutely love this spot for Bijan. And I didn't take the rush attempts, but I took his receiving yards at 23.5. You can get that -110. I got it over on Bet365. I think it's a very, very sneaky look. And for some of what Rod kind of talked about already. So you just go in and you kind of check the box score. Of course, they play both home games, right? So back-to-back games to start his young career, 5 and 6 targets, which is actually the most on the team because, as Rod said, Desmond Ridder is not going to wow you and throw for 500 yards. You do not have to worry about that one.
Yeah.
Won't be on anybody's bingo card for this week. So the 11 targets that Bijan has is actually the most on the team. You look at the Lions, they actually allowed just 86 yards per game on the ground, which is good for 9th in the 2 games so far this season. And while Atlanta does rush the ball 36 times per game, which ranks 4th most in the league, something's got to give here in this spot. So you look at Bijan, he's caught 10 of the 11 passes that have actually been thrown his way. So that tells me, that's a very good percentage. And he has hands. 48 yards receiving in week 1 against Green Bay, 27 last week against Carolina. His 75 yards receiving is actually second on the team behind Hollins. And then he also leads the team in receptions and targets so far. That we always talk about, like, where is Ridder how is he getting the ball out? He's not throwing no Hail Mary type passes, so you don't have to worry about that. And the other thing that really jumped off the page to me, fellas, was I looked at his yards after the catch. This dude actually has 95 yards after the catch because, like I said, Desmond Ridder just dumping this thing down, and Bijan is making people miss. And we're seeing the highlights, even when he scored in week 1 on the touchdown. So his 95 yards after the catch is actually 5th in the league amongst running backs and wide receivers. So I like it from that perspective. Also, last point, Detroit runs 67 plays per game, which is right outside of the top 10. So Atlanta, I think, will have to play up, and this game will be played at a little bit faster of a pace because Atlanta likes to play a little bit slower than their typical 63 plays that they typically run per game. So all of those things, in conjunction, I do like Bijan to be, go over this really, really low number of 24.5 receiving yards this week.
It just turns into a shootout when you're playing in Detroit, right? I mean, we saw that last week with Seattle. That game went into overtime, but that game finished up with 69 points total. So, I mean, look, when we talk about the point that you also brought up that Detroit likes to play fast, that's going to have to enable the Falcons also play fast, which, again, screen passes, dump downs to Bijan Robinson, also yards after catch. That's going to be huge for Bijan Robinson in this game. So, again, if you're a fantasy player, RB1 for sure for Bijan Robinson, no doubt this week and the rest of the season for sure. All right, guys, before I get up to my second player prop, let me tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5-4-5. And from now until October 4th, Underdog is matching 100% of your first deposit of up to $500. They're also giving away $100,000 on Sundays on Underdog Fantasy. Total of $2 million in prizes all season long. $100,000 in prizes this week. $10,000 to 10 people this week. New sweepstakes every week of the NFL season. This week's higher or lower is going to be Tyreek Hill receiving yards at 91.5. Higher or lower, even if you're wrong, you still have a chance to win $10,000 over on Underdog Fantasy. So watch along, make your picks, and maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or their website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up with promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. And last but not least, we're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, MLB, and soccer bets with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching and start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, gentlemen, let me get over to my second player prop for the NFL Week 3. I'm going to go over to that Sunday Night Football game between the Raiders and the Steelers. I'm going to go with Jaylen Warren over on his receiving yards this game against the Raiders. And just as I say that, my notes go off the page here. But let's start with Najee Harris. And I don't know if it's an injury or he's just lost a step for this offense of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he just doesn't look right to me. And again, Jaylen Warren has came in the first 2 weeks of this regular season from the backfield and receiving wise. He's been an absolute stud for this Steelers offense. So we talked about how Kenny Pickett has been really bad. And I think that we saw last week when Jaylen Warren was brought into the game that I know they had a big play to George Pickens down the field, but it's been a lot of dinking and dunking for this Steelers team. But so let's go through the first 2 weeks of the regular season. Warren has a total of 9 receptions for 78 yards for the first 2 weeks. The Raiders are allowing the third most receptions to the running back position this season. And they're also allowing, they're also top 10 in yards allowed to the running back position as far as from a receiving perspective. Last week, Warren did see a 3% snap count increase. I think that's slowly going to increase as we kind of go week to week. And I think this is a great buy low point for Jaylen Warren. Asking him to get 13.5 receiving yards, I don't think is a tall order, especially when the speed that this guy has, the elusive that he does has. Again, if Najee Harris is going to continue to struggle, I'm expecting that snap counts and those the snap counts and the percentages to go up for Jaylen Warren. So right now, 13.5 for Jaylen Warren on his receiving yards. I'm going to take the over on that here. Chris, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to like him. You know, if you look at like you said, his competitor is who? It's Najee Harris. Najee Harris has what three receptions, 5 targets, 2 yards. Like that, I think that says enough. Especially when you think about like you said, that Raiders defense specifically to the running back position. So just make that one short. Looking at the numbers, that just makes a lot of sense to me.
Rod, take us over to player prop number 3, my friend. What do we got?
All right. Well, then I'm going to go defensive on this one. I'm going to go with Chase Young. He has set at 3/3 or 3/3. What is it? 2/3 of a sack. I don't know. It's 0.75. He just needs to get
3/4.
3/4. Thank you for math. It's Friday. I'm already out there. So yeah, all he's got to do is get a sack in this game against Josh Allen. Chase Young got himself a sack and a half last week. Looked outstanding. He's going to be chasing after Josh Allen, who's already been sacked 7 times this season and 5 times in week 1 against the Jets. The Jets got after him 5 times and brought him to the ground. Las Vegas got after him twice last week as well. So Josh Allen's looking a little suspect against pass rushes and so is the offensive line for that matter. So and you look at actually Dallas or Washington rather, they're tied with Dallas for the most sacks per game so far this season with 5. So both of them have an average of 5 sacks per game this season so far. You look at Buffalo, they're inside the top 10. They're averaging 3.5 sacks given up per game so far this season. Again, like I said, Josh Allen got brought down 5 times against the Jets. I mean, that's all I need against an elite pass rusher like Chase Young, who is going to be hungry to, I mean, he's happy to be back on the field. So he's going to be tearing it up against the Bills because that's what you do. I mean, you have to show out against teams that are way better than you on paper. So definitely expect Chase Young to get after it. And the way he looked last week, I expect him to get Josh Allen to the ground at least once. And that's all you need to cash this prop. And that is at plus 170 over there on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, look, this offensive line for the Bills was rated one of the lower ones or below league average coming into the season, right? I think there's no sugarcoating. There's no putting a Band-Aid over that they, Josh Allen puts himself sometimes in those positions of getting sacked. When you have a freak of a nature like Chase Young trying to hunt you down, asking him to get 1 sack here, not a big deal for a guy that's always in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. I'm not going to argue against that. Chris, any thoughts on Chase Young?
You know, I'm not arguing it either, right? No, I'm not arguing it. I hope we get 10 sacks, but not in all seriousness, I love it. I absolutely love this play. I think you look at Josh Allen. He likes to let kind of plays develop, right? Like he's not one of those quarterbacks that gets the ball out of his hands. He likes to let those long kind of plays develop down the field, whether it's a go route or it's a post route. So I think they potentially hold on to the ball. All it takes is one time, and for Chase Young to get back there. I think the other thing to add to that as well, Rod, is that this guy has not played a home game under new management at all, right? So this is going to be his first home game because when I say we, of course, the Commanders, we were in Denver last week. So he missed the home opener as well. So against Arizona. So I really love this prop, and I think we see a lot of energy, a renewed type energy from this Washington Commanders defense, and Chase Young getting a sack is definitely in the realm. So I like it.
Hey, I knew my audience.
Absolutely, right?
Chris, player prop number 3.
All right, so now let me go back to the quarterback position, and I think it's a buy low spot, a bounce back spot. I'm looking at Deshaun Watson. It's actually 2 props. I couldn't really pick which one I like the most. His pass attempts are at 30.5. I absolutely love that number. And his passing yards are actually at 225.5. Both of them, the pass attempts are minus 105 over on Barstool for people who are looking to have access to Barstool. It's the best line I saw. And then the passing yards are minus 110 over on Bet365. And this is like maybe something that's not too traditional. You don't think of Deshaun Watson and automatically think, let me go take his pass yards over. Let me go take his pass attempts over, especially how he's been playing in the first couple of weeks since returning from injury last year. But this Browns offense, they only pass the ball 51% of the time. And they rank just 25th in the league. But when you think about Chubb being injured, we know he's not coming back, even though they did sign Kareem Hunt. The Titans' poor pass defense, it just kind of makes sense that Washington has to step up and pass the ball in this situation, especially against this Titans team, right? Titans opponents are actually passing the ball 63% of the time, which is the 6th most in the league. I mean, and why not? Like, their defense has been pretty terrible. They're not blitzing. Just 14.6% of the time is what the Titans are blitzing at, which is actually 29th. And they're only creating pressure about 8% of the time when they're blitzes, which is the lowest rate in the league. Totally opposite of what he saw last week against the Steelers when they were bringing pressure left and right, and he was turning the ball over left and right as well. You go back and look at Derek Carr, who just played against his team, 33 pass attempts in week 1. Justin Herbert, 41 pass attempts in week 2. Titans allowing 305 passing yards to both Derek Carr and Justin Herbert. Watson threw the ball 40 times in week 2 against Pittsburgh and 29 times in week 1 against Cincinnati. I think if he can bounce back in this performance, if he can't bounce back in this performance, then I'll start looking in my head, looking at Watson a little funny and thinking that we might have to reevaluate this quarterback position. But I really, like I said, I couldn't even pick one. I just think that in order for them to be successful, they're 3.5 point favorites in this game. He's going to have to throw for at least 225, 240 passing yards. I also saw that what's his wide receiver name? Amari Cooper. He practiced today, which is good, especially for a Friday. So I like the pass attempts and I love the passing yards. I'm gonna play them both.
This correlates right into my third player prop here, and I'll just go right into that. Amari Cooper. I took the over on his receiving yards. That's at 58.5. And again, this Titans pass defense has been absolutely atrocious to start the season. You mentioned it. Both quarterbacks that they have faced 305 yards passing each. Also did consider Deshaun Watson's longest completion over because last week Justin Herbert definitely got over this number, and I forgot who they played in week 1. Did the Titans? Derek Carr. He also got over this longest completion of I want to say it was, I think the number's at 35.5 for Deshaun Watson. But Amari Cooper, like last week, I know Rod was on Amari Cooper. Despite him popping up on that injury report on Saturday with that groin injury, he still went out there, got 90 yards, if I'm not mistaken, for this Browns offense. So we know that chemistry is there between Watson and Amari Cooper. Those 2 guys are going to lead the offense here for this Browns team. So again, no argument from me on Deshaun Watson. This has to be the buy low spot. Like you mentioned, Chris, that if he doesn't go out and perform this week or have a good day passing the football, we kind of got to take a step back and say, okay, what's going on with Deshaun Watson? And is that $230 million guaranteed contract worth it for the Cleveland Browns? So I like your angle on the Deshaun Watson. Kind of leads right into my Amari Cooper over on his receiving yards for this week. Rod, I know you're up against it. You want to give out your touchdown prop bets. If you also want to give out your best bet as well, then me and Chris can wrap up the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So my best bet is going to be Bijan over 14.5. I really think that's a given. They have to do it. They can't not do this and expect to win this game. So put it in the hands of Bijan and you're all good. That is my best bet, minus 105. My touchdown is going to be kind of crazy, and I'll go out on a limb and say Romeo Doubs has an anytime touchdown. I like this at plus 250. Look, it's not like I think that the Packers are going to go crazy against the Saints. I mean, the Saints are not really giving up a lot of offensive touchdowns a game, but you look at who they played. They played Carolina, a young quarterback. They played Tennessee, who played probably the worst game in their entire existence to date so far. So with Tannehill throwing 3 interceptions, it was a bad day for Tennessee to start the season. And then the Saints, the Panthers, like I said, rookie quarterback, right? He did get a touchdown in there, so that's fantastic. But that wasn't a team that you were going to be scared of. Now, listen, actually, Green Bay's been doing pretty good. They actually are scoring. They're tied with Miami for most offensive touchdowns a game at 3.5. Right? Dobbs has 2 of his own, and he didn't score last week, which kind of makes me want it more because, like I said, it's either between him or like Jaden Reed on the other end of it, who has 2 touchdowns himself. But Reed scored 2 touchdowns last week. Can't really say that I think he's going to get back in the end zone, but I think Dobbs has a chance to do that this week against the Saints. Love loves him, right? So I think there's a little bit of a spark there, and I think that's going to result in a touchdown. And if a Packers receiver is going to score a touchdown this week, I think it's going to be Romeo Doubs. Anytime TD plus 250.
Love it. I think that might be one of the games where I think sneakily we may see some points. I know the total is not very high in that game. But again, I think for Jordan Love to find some success, he's going to have to rely on his receivers in Romeo Doubs. Rod, I'm going to let you get out of here, my friend. Anything else you want to mention before you got to get out of here?
Yeah, sorry for that, guys. I got
no, you're
got
good.
A lot of stuff going on Friday, but I'm apologizing to them, not you guys. Anyways, yes, find me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio, everything I got going on. Finished up NASCAR. F1's happening right now, so lots of good stuff out there as too. But yeah, just you know where to find me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez.
He's going to the 49ers 3-0 parade right now. That's where he's going. But yeah, appreciate you, Rod. Hey, we'll reconvene next week for Thursday Night Football. Appreciate you, my friend. Me and Chris will wrap it up here for the Propcast here. Have a good weekend, my man.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
All right. Chris, kind of going back to the Deshaun Watson, I kind of wanted to I guess discuss this with you as well. And I guess I know it's still I know it's only the first 2 weeks here, but I'm not sure it's that hesitancy that's in Deshaun Watson, because I know as a Texans fan, like I've seen the talent that he's had on the field. And he's had games where he can go out there and throw for 300, 400 plus passing yards, but it also may be a combination that I think that right now, I think that when we talked about the Cleveland Browns, that when you had Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I know they just signed Kareem Hunt back onto the roster to give him that that running back depth, that they were obviously a team that was predicated on running the football, right? When you have a guy like Nick Chubb, top 3-4 short, some may argue that he's the best running back in the league. I'm not going to argue against that because he's just that dynamite. But I think going to go back to your point is saying that I think this week we're gonna find out a lot about Deshaun Watson. And if he's able to carry this team to a victory, I just want to see how well he does perform offensively. Because again, like I mentioned, I've seen the talent. He can scramble with the football. He can throw the football as well. He does have the talent around him with the skill positions, right? We talked about Amari Cooper, David Njoku, DPJ's out there. They picked up Elijah Moore as well. Kareem Hunt out of the backfield eventually. Obviously, he doesn't have to learn a lot because they're already familiar with the system. But does Deshaun Watson make you nervous, or what do you think is kind of going on in the head right now of Deshaun Watson?
I think it's a little bit of what you touched on. I think they were built to be a run heavy, football team. And Deshaun Watson, although he got all that money, he's probably like, man, thank you God, Kareem. I thank you God, Nick Chubb. You gonna make my job so much easier. I'm gonna just turn around, hand the ball off to you. It's kind of interesting to think about it. When you think about how running backs are so underpaid, and we heard so much controversy around running backs, and them being feeling unvalued, and then you think about a team like the Cleveland Browns that run the ball, almost 50% of the time. They're always amongst the league leaders since they've gotten Nick Chubb. I want to say back in 2018, just because he is so good. We've talked about him on the preview shows. This guy averages 5 yards a carry religiously throughout his career. So you're not having to do as much. So I think that you just become a little too heavily dependent upon him. But to me, this is all about the recipe. When we're adding in, this Tennessee Titans defense, you got to be kind of licking your chops, right? Last week when we did the show, I gave out Keenan Allen as my best bet because I loved him going up against the same defense. So I love your angle looking at Amari Cooper. But if you're not able to pass the ball against this defense, I think it is like a time where you kind of got to reevaluate just a tad bit because it's not going to get any easier than this. I understand some of the struggles in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has been one of those teams where you don't necessarily want to bet against them when they're home dogs because it doesn't typically work out well for you. And that's what we saw, right? It wasn't necessarily that Pickett played well. It was that their defense, they got a turnover at the beginning of the game. They got a turnover late in the game, and they took both of them back for touchdowns. So they were like, you know what? We're not even giving the ball to Pickett. We don't even want to see this offense on the field. We'll just run it in ourselves, and then we'll come back out here and we'll defend Deshaun Watson as well. So I think being back at home, because he didn't necessarily play. He didn't look great, of course, in week 1 against the Bengals, but they kind of thrashed the Bengals in week 1. So, I think being back home, they'll kind of rally around him, hopefully make it a kind of a friendly playbook for him. But he does have a lot of pressure on him, especially after getting all that money. He needs to perform here.
Yeah, I mean, look, going back to week 1, 16 of 29, 154 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I know weather had a lot to do with that in week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals. But last week, obviously, the game-changing play was that fumble returned by the Steelers defense. That was pretty much the difference in that game. But he still had 40 attempts in that game. The completion percentage has been at 55% over the first 2 weeks for Deshaun Watson. 235 yards last week, 1 touchdown in each of the first 2 games. So I think we'll learn a lot. Again, 3 total fumbles he has coughed up, and 2 of them which have been lost, which both were against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. So yeah, again, like I mentioned, we'll find a lot about Deshaun Watson this upcoming week. Just kind of adding to Amari Cooper, he's faced this Titans team 4 times in his career. And this maybe not be relevant because it goes all the way back to his days when he was with the Oakland Raiders. This was before they even moved to Vegas, but I'll quickly rattle off the numbers against the Titans in his career. 115 receiving yards, 62, 62, and 58. And currently right now the number is at 58.5. I think this might be a great ladder opportunity as well for Amari Cooper. And let me just see quickly before we do get to some touchdown prop bets here, and then our best bets to wrap up the show here, Chris. Quickly trying to see a 75 yards plus for Amari Cooper. That's at plus 165. If you want to go 100 plus yards for Amari Cooper in this game, plus 425 to him to get into triple digits. But again, I like the over 58.5. I might sprinkle a little bit on that 75 plus at plus 165. Let's get over to some touchdown prop bets here, Chris. Anything that you do like for this upcoming week?
Yeah, absolutely. So first one is going to be Mr. Calvin Ridley. The odds aren't great, but I just absolutely think that he gets in the end zone. Either him, I think maybe you put a little bit on him and you put a little bit on Travis Etienne as well. Okay. But the Travis Etienne, he's actually not even plus money. So the books are telling you that they're probably going to score against against that Texas defense that's been pretty bad. Texas have actually allowed the most rushing touchdowns this season. So Travis Etienne, I think, is minus 105 over on BetMGM. But Calvin Ridley plus 145 over on Barstool. Their offense looked bad last week, man. They looked really, really bad. They scored 9 points at home, against a Chiefs defense that we didn't think was going to be that great. So I think that they'll start a little bit faster against the Texans defense. Jacksonville also went 0-3 in the red zone on their 3 red zone opportunities, and once they had a first and goal from Kansas City 1 yard line in the fourth quarter and settled for a field goal. Also, there were 4 occasions, 2 each by Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley, in which the receivers were unable to get 2 feet down in the end zone. So I think we just see, maybe the luck change, maybe it's the defense. but I think that this offense starts fast. I think they're locked in. I was just reading some of the quotes that came out. So I like this offense to bounce back a lot this week, So I actually like both of those guys. I know it's the same game. I'll probably put a little bit on Calvin Ridley and Travis Etienne as well. Also, the game. This is probably the prop game of the week. We didn't even mention it, but Justin Jefferson. Like I don't know how we go without mentioning Justin Jefferson. I don't think he's plus money either, but it just kind of makes sense that he's not. I mean, the highest total on the board, highest total we've actually seen in a while. I think it's 53.5 up to 54 at some spots. This game is projected to be an absolute shootout. I want to say the Vikings were. I got it written in my notes. I want to say they were 7-1 or 8-1 last year when they were home favorites. So when they're at home, it's typically shootouts. We know that their defense just got gashed last week. We just watched them on Monday Night Football get gashed. Couldn't stop the run at all. So I think that mix it up just a tad bit. We know what Justin Herbert can do in that offense when they come into town as well. So I think we see a shootout there. I think you got to like Justin Jefferson. I don't see anybody being able to slow that guy down. So those are the guys that I really, really love this week. I've also got to put a little sprinkle on Bijan again, just because I like his player prop a lot. And I think that if anybody scores for Atlanta, it's probably going to be him. I saw Cordero Patterson pop up on the injury report. Not 100% sure if he's going to play, but I like those guys for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think my touchdown props were coming from that, obviously, that Chargers and the Vikings game, just because, like you mentioned, it is the highest total on the board for this NFL Week 3 at around 53.5, 54, like you mentioned. Justin Jefferson minus 110. I think I'm gonna stick with the guy that has been the cashing for me over the first 2 weeks, Jordan Addison, for the Minnesota Vikings. And look, first 2 weeks, he's had a touchdown in each of the first 2 games. Against the Bucks, he had one, and obviously against the Eagles, he had one. And they've all been down the field passes, that deep threat. I mean, I know Justin Jefferson is that guy as well, but Jordan Addison has been that guy as well. He's had a 62-yard reception against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think that was a touchdown pass that he did catch against the Eagles in that Monday Night Football game. He also had one against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. Currently, that number is sitting at plus 220. I think we got to also go back to our guy, TJ Hawkinson, plus 170 against the obviously with the Vikings as well in this Chargers game. So those are the two I'm looking at as well. You mentioned that Jaguars and the Texans game. I think that this game also sneakily we'll see some points being scored in this game. I'm trying to find it over here on DraftKings. Let's see here. Here we go. I'm going back to Tank, man. Tank Dell plus 370. The odds have adjusted a little bit. Last week he was 5-1. I gave that out on the Propcast last week. Again, the books have adjusted plus 370. I'll go with Tank Dell for the Texans to find the end zone in this game as my touchdown scores for this week. Chris, let's wrap up the show with best bets, man. What do you got for our listeners?
Man, it's so much to like this week. There's so much to like. It's props that I gave that I didn't even give out. I actually like CJ Stroud to go over his 33.5 pass attempts as well. Dudes had 47 and 44 in the game. So, but if I had to give one out that I talked about already, Odell Beckham Jr. just got ruled out as well. So Zay Flowers, definitely get that in if you like it. I think he's going to be wide receiver 1. Yards slowly but surely just ticking up. I think it opened at 44.5, is up to 50. 52.5 at some books. You still can get it at 49. But I'll go back to what I think is probably going to be the sneakiest one, and I really like Bijan. I just think that really, I don't think that he's going to throw the ball down the field. Like, he hasn't shown me that he's able to do that. I don't even think that offense, works in that way, but I do think that they could potentially get down in this game. It's going to be their first game on the road. We got to remember that. They are 2-0.
Yeah.
Detroit is coming off a loss in a game that they were projected to win, which is why we don't buy them as a favorite yet. We just typically buy them on the road as a dog. But I think it's a game you're going to see points. I think they're going to have to play a little bit faster. So I really love Bijan. If I feel like I found something with this one to go over his 23.5 receiving yards, just because it's going to be dinks and donks. And like I said, he's number 1 in targets on the team. He's caught 10 of the 11 passes. He's gone over this number twice already at home. So now in a faster paced game, Detroit, like I said, runs 67 plays per game, which is right outside their top 10. And you look at Atlanta, they only running 63. I think they run a few more plays just to kind of keep up just a tad bit. So give me Bijan as my top play of the week, to go over his 23.5. receiving yards, minus 110 over on Bet365 right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. Again, like you mentioned, Bijan Robinson has been that guy for this offense in the first 2 weeks, and obviously he was drafted top 10 by this Falcons team for a reason at that number 9 spot in this past draft. And again, we've seen him do great things over the first 2 weeks. And again, he's a guy that can do it out of the backfield, run the football, but he's also a guy that can catch those screen passes and create space for himself, and gets that yak, like you mentioned, in your handicap. So yeah, I'm not. There's no way I can fade Bijan Robinson because the books will eventually adjust to his number. So we got to get in at the buy low spot here as well. I mean, you mentioned some of the props that we didn't talk about. I want to give out as my best bets, man. I mean, there's 3 that I mentioned. I have it on my list that we didn't even talk about. I'll go back to that Texans game, and I'm really high on Tank Dell for a reason. And I know we talked about this last week. The Texans lost Noah Brown to the IR, and again, that just put Tank Dell into that number 2 spot for this offense going forward until he does come back, and he's really proven himself. So if you kind of take a look at his numbers over the first 2 weeks of the season, Tank Dell in week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens, he had 3 catches for 34 yards on 4 targets. And those numbers pretty much doubled in week 2 against the Indianapolis Colts, 7 receptions on 10 targets for 72 yards. So I'm going to stick with his receiving yards in this game for this game against the Jaguars. That number's at 35.5. I think he gets over this number. I think, again, he can get into that range of 40, 50, 60 yards again. And I think this is going to be one of those games here, Chris, where I think we do see him, or we do see points being put up in this game. I won't be surprised if this game does get into the 50s like it did last week with the Colts and the Texans. You also mentioned the CJ Stroud on his pass attempts. I like that as well. Depending on your shop, I see it at 33.5 with a little bit of vig over it. But now that number's moved up to 34.5, and I still like it. We look at the first 2 weeks of the season for CJ Stroud. He's had week 1, 28 of 44, and last week, 30 of 47. So what does that kind of tell you? Number one, this defense is absolutely terrible for this Texans. They're always going to be playing from behind, which they have to throw the football. And CJ Stroud hasn't made mistakes, right? He hasn't thrown an interception yet for this Texans team, which is really outstanding. So I think that's going to continue for him to get these pass attempts in this game. I was high on Dameon Pierce coming to the season. He hasn't looked very good. I know last week they were missing 4 of their 5 offensive linemen. I think that might be the case again for this Texans team for this upcoming week, which just means, again, if they are playing from behind, they are going to have to throw the football. So I think you and I are both agreement about on the over on his pass attempts for 34.5 for this Texans offense. Do you have any thoughts on those 2 guys? Being a little homer here, but I think when I find the money for this Texans team, I got to take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So I think it's a misconception of like handicappers like wanting to make a play on their team. You're not making a play on your team because you want to make a play on your team and you want to win some money. It's not fandom. You're making a play on your team because you watch them and you know what they excel at and you know what they don't excel at. So I absolutely love that. I like that we're aligned there. I think I like both of your props. I didn't really look too much in the tank, but I love that look as well. I think that's a really, really good look for this week. But Stroud, man, you talked about him, 47, 44 pass attempts. The Texans actually ranked 3rd in plays per game, at 75.5 per game, which is absolutely insane with a rookie quarterback, because you would think they want to go slow. They want to kind of ease him in, and they just kind of thrown him out there. I listened to the post-game interview, and, the coaching staff absolutely love this guy. It doesn't seem like they think that he's, like doing too much or they're using him too much. It's not like I didn't hear anything that make me think that they would be like, we're going to dial back a little bit. I think they're absolutely going to keep it going, So I mentioned third in plays per game at 75.5. Also 67.5% passing which is actually 5th in the league is what their passing percentage is. Jags not too far behind them, 66.5, which is actually 12th. So what that tells me is going to be a back and forth game. Rookie quarterbacks on the road typically are playing from behind. We mentioned how the Jaguars, had that really poor offensive game. So I think they come out shooting, and it's just sets up for a really, really good spot for CJ Stroud to try to carry this offense as much as he possibly can and help them to score as much as he possibly can. Also, the Texans, the cornerback, Derek Stingley is his name, right?
Yeah.
He's out. I saw him going to IR as well with the hamstring injury. So that just means more passing yards for the opposite side, which means it could be even more of a shootout when you start taking DBs out. So absolutely love CJ Stroud today as well. Almost like a double best bet for me. I like Stroud a lot.
Yeah, 100%. I think again, this might be a game where, like you mentioned, that the Jaguars probably want to flex their muscles a little bit after the frustration they had last week against the Chiefs and not able to put up a lot of points. And again, Trevor Lawrence, just out of curiosity, I'm looking it up. He's had success against his Texans team as far as his pass attempts as well. 51, 38, 47, 21, 332 yards, 210, 286, and 152. So, yeah, I think we'll see a lot of points being put up in this game for sure. That's going to do it for this edition, NFL Week 3 player props. Chris, anything else we want to mention, my friend, before we get out of here?
Nah, man, another great show. I think we gave out a lot of great looks, and I think we're going to make a lot of cash this week. I'm going to go ahead and put it into existence right now, and then we'll be back next week as always. Definitely check out my work over on Twitter. Capping WNBA playoffs right now, which will be back on, unfortunately, on Sunday, so I won't be watching much of it because it's right in the middle of basketball. Right in the middle of NFL. The game started at 1 and I think like 4. So, but definitely capping that. Doing pretty good as well. Don't want to talk about it too much and jinx myself, but hopefully we can kind of keep that going and get back on get these props to cash as well. So as always, pleasure doing the show with you, my man. Let's get some cash and take us home.
Yeah, man, we had a pretty good week last week as far as our player props went for week 2. So hopefully we can carry that into week 3 here of the NFL regular season. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the Propcast wherever you do listen to your pods, whether that's on Apple, Spotify. We also go live streaming on the NFL Gambling Podcast. So if you haven't already subscribed to the NFL Gambling Podcast YouTube channel, go ahead and do so. Much, much appreciated. Like Chris mentioned, you can follow him on X or Twitter, whatever you may want to call it, at Crispy Cappin, 2 P's, 2 N's. You can follow me on Twitter at SportsNerd824. Good luck with your bets this weekend. Let's break these books off and let it ride.